Hello, everybody. We'll just take a minute here as folks start to accumulate in the cubes. Welcome to the Brooklyn Rails Wednesday poetry reading series. This is the 90th reading and the 582nd overall event that we've been putting on over the last couple of years. And my name is Anselm Berrigan. I'm the poetry editor for the Rail. And we're really happy to have this reading put together today by the poet Buck Downs. And Buck will be reading along with Leslie Bumstead, Heather Fuller, Lorraine Graham, and Rod Smith. These are all poets that I've gotten to know over the years through readings and publications and things coming out of the Washington, D.C. area. I moved to New York City, back to New York City in 1996. And it turned out all the really hot stuff poetry-wise was actually taking place around DC. So I'm really happy that this is happening. And before I embarrass myself any further with showering praise on everybody, I will just introduce Buck Downs. Buck Downs makes poetry stickers, postcards, voicemails, and other ephemera. His book, Tachycardia, Poems 2010 to 2012 is available from Edge Books. A Selected Poems, Unintended Empire was published by Furniture Press Books in 2017. I think I have a few hundred of those postcards in a stack somewhere. Please welcome Buck Downs.
All right, hey everybody. Thanks, Anselm. Am I coming in all right? All right, I'm just gonna act like I am. Four of my favorite people, not only as poets, but as people on the bill today. So I'm gonna cruise through some new poems real quick and then hand it back over. This is called Caprice Classic. Dusted fancy, freak kitten, I am killing nothing but time. Homelessly self-employed as my own Sherpa. It was a jailhouse awakening where the lights don't ever go down. The presentation of having been erased, not mine, and not mine, too. My flaming toilet is pretty high class, now that I think of it. How you like me so far, man? Evermapped. Packing invisible happiness like some unprovable wound. Proud flesh and a warm inflammation. I could not even reach my itch. That's what made it mine. Ditto looper. Sisyphus has got this job. That's his deal. That's who he is. When I felt bad, I got busy. Written down so you can say it over and over. You can be first, but you can't be next. I did not come this far to turn around and go back home now. Trunk talk. Face down, friends, butcher taste, get my work done in a slaughtering pen, twisting up the live wire inside her. She's just this young bully of mine. The blackout never knows when it started. The real unknown is how we are feeling. The darkness is where we wake. Not right now. I felt that wave of what nicotine could do for me. Extended form of mind, full of capture, breathing in and out, share the same seat, doing all that math on the day that I would die. Satisfied that ruin in the cadaver is the bottom line. Come and get your feeling of every kind, the world of not spending the night. Pulp medicine. Hey, don't ask me what's in it. Just get some down. The directions will kick in on the back end. If you ask me, how does this work? I say fine. It works just fine. It's a poem for Doug. Informed torment. An old man being led around by the nose by his father to know, and now struggle to remember who you told it to. He said, you know, you're old when light is useless against the dark. This is called Snowdrops. All you princes and princesses of my euphoria, you are nighttime's darling. Your potty mouth makes me out. Now come over here and tell me all about your day. The system doesn't know you, heart slammed to the pavement, isolated incidents that happen every day. Little Rag and Bonehead. It doesn't take an earthquake to rock my little world. It doesn't take a rattlesnake to sting me. Hearing voices, seeing sights, psychic living, and experience of the mouth. Everything is a judgment call. What we do is clear away the fuzz to see. Shrinking payoff in the total range of sounds. You're allowed to want it, even if you don't want to have it. And this is a little bit longer poem. I guess a while back was the 50th anniversary of the release of 2001, A Space Odyssey. And so this is already kind of like absurdly dated, but I'm fascinated by latency, the sort of the gap between what I do and what you get to see of it. It's modeled on a poem by Creeley called Heroes, a great poem. Creeley, being a much better poet, wrote a much shorter poem. But anyway, this is called Odysseys after Creeley. In all of those movies, the spaceman is out there, fully efficient, the solitary friend, surrounded by his super devices. The machines may be obedient or turn treacherous, like Hal descending into madness, so human-like. For example, learning to read lips in order to eavesdrop and returning to that first lesson, the one of learning how to sing. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I thought that one part of Kubrick's plan of it was that we would learn the limits of our tool making and how to use them in that shared forgetting of time as we bathed in the twilight of the dream machine. That was 1968. This is 2018. And it turns out the escape pod only exists in the movies. We travel through space on this planet as we always have, making up these odysseys to answer that sense of flying and or falling that follows us through the void of space and time, knowing its nothingness, feeling its presence, and to keep us going beyond the rocks and the desert, the bones, on toward the distance, all of us together. Okay, that's a poem. That's poetry reading. Back to you, Anselm.
Thanks, Buck. It's great to get to hear you again. Hey, Heather, you're out there now, yeah? Okay, but you're reading last, so you don't have to sweat it. By the way, I forgot to say earlier on that if you haven't been to any of these readings before, please scroll through the chat as you have a chance. People post comments, but also we put in a lot of information about the readers and the different books and things that they're working on or have out in the world, so you can catch up on some of those links and other stuff going on with the Rail. And the reading is also recorded and archived on the Rail's website. and also on YouTube, so the links can circulate. Our next reader is going to be Lorraine Graham. Poet Lorraine Graham makes poems and texts that sometimes manifest as drawings, games, and performances. She is the author of The Rest is Censored from Bloof Books, Terminal Humming from Edge Books, My Little Neoliberal Pony from Insert Blanc Press, and a little book of semiotic squares forthcoming from Primary Writing. Please welcome Lorraine Graham.
Thanks. Yeah, and that Primary Writing book is actually now out. So I'm so happy to be here. I've mostly been making drawings, and I was thinking, I don't have any new poems, but then I was thinking about like Kevin Davies, and I feel like maybe he doesn't do this anymore, but a long time ago, he's like, when I have a reading, I just assemble a poem. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna assemble some poems. So 20 minutes of binking bunny videos. The doves will nest somewhere and I'm overcommitted. There's no doctor, only a minute clinic. Where's the dental floss and where are the scissors? I don't know anyone's birthday or age, and we disagree about how to organize the bottles. Apocalyptic Mara Eliason saying she dislikes current apocalyptic rhetoric, except she doesn't say rhetoric, but she does say reality resistant, as in the administration is reality resistant, and I'm carrying on in my retro reality-based community. Look, I found the sunblock. Sometimes the judicious study of discernible reality works. I found this video of a tortoise eating flowers through Instagram and thought of you. Okay. I can't clean the windows, so I clean my glasses and look at the cumulus clouds. I never thought I'd write poems about the weather, and certainly not clouds, but I guess I never thought I'd be a poet, even a poet who can't remember the name of clouds and has to look them up later. I remember I need to ask someone something, but in the middle of looking for some piece of information that will help me do that, I forget what and who I need to ask. My Google Calendar is full, but of course that does not mean I lead a full life, though I might. I forgot to log my hours. I still haven't requested time off for the summer because I don't know where to go or how. Aristophanes wrote a comedy about clouds, and Aeschylus imagines them as a chorus of nymphs, the Nephilae who comfort Prometheus chained to a mountain crag. Or does Prometheus imagine them? I'm grinding my teeth and holding my breath again. Do you do that? Aristophanes, Aeschylus, and Euripides all had beards. I'm reaching for my imaginative powers, but my unconscious is all spreadsheets and taxonomies and information architectures, which are really just complex outlines. But even a simple outline is a narrative, and I'm one of those poets who think a bunch of words together is a narrative. This poem is a dream. And in my dreams, I open the door and a bird walks in and asks for food, or there are birds under my bed that need help. Sisu says that women, birds, and dreams are a portal to writing, or maybe she says they're a portal to hell, but hell is a good place to be if you're a writer. What she means is that it's good to be dirty or unclean. I'm lousy with the concept of good enough, and most of living is about experiencing reactions so old they're not even memory. If they're rooted in anything, they're rooted in family, or enough generations of family to make them seem like culture. No one likes feeling shame or rage, but gun to the head, I take rage. Gun to the head is my hypothetical luxury. I don't actually know my patterns, but nothing slips by. All messages are delivered. This poem is me telling my project manager that no, I don't always read my email. A raw confusion is not the opposite of a cooked certainty, whatever either might be, but writing is an aid to memory. A book is a mnemonic. Robert Burton wrote Melancholy as Anatomy, and somewhere in all those volumes is something about the anxious person's perpetual desire to start again. That's not a direct quote, but that is what you do in the morning after temporarily wanting to jump out a window like Sally in the 1974 version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Have you seen it? Watch it again. She doesn't hesitate. I guess it was whenever nuclear energy became mainstream that we started talking about severe emotional distress as meltdown, self as reactor core. So sometime in the late 50s, I look it up, not till after the 1979 partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island, which is why I kind of know what 3 Mile Island was, even though I don't really know. What is the word for being extremely but ordinarily tired? That video of gas station clerks falling asleep while ringing up customers. The internet says they were on opiates, but I don't see any fact checking. And wasn't there an earlier video and an earlier one? 2 women at work, sleeping and waking, working. Okay. And then I promised I'd read something with a refrain, fundamentally loathsome. So we'll see. Well, I'll like, whatever, I'll stop. Partnership is fundamentally loathsome. Being single is fundamentally loathsome. Making fun while meaning it. I worry about the future even though time is not linear. Arguments about curtains. Smile and do not express preferences. The kitchen is closed in any way. Time doesn't prefer anything, so why not collapse all arguments into one meta argument that ends in death? I may love metadrama, but I am not wrong about death. I wrote this to make you feel better about time, especially linear time. Despair for the future is reasonable. I'm so grateful you don't tag photos, hashtag so grateful. That would be fundamentally loathsome, like arguing about curtains or buying a home or discussing real estate at a party. Ivanka Trump has ruined Beyonce's Run the World, even though no one can. And how can I fight fascism while debating curtains, which are fundamentally loathsome? I guess this poem aspires to fight fascism, even though poems are fundamentally loathsome in a way that death is not. I have dedicated my life to futility, the only reasonable solution, though it is fundamentally inadequate, if not quite loathsome. I'm easily repulsed by the United States, by curtains. There's a US curtain continuum. There is a US marriage continuum. I want you to know that I love you, and the feelings we have on the way to love are occasionally loathsome. But how can I fight and love? How can I love and fight fascism while listening to NPR, angry about curtains? I worry about the future. A reviewer said my work is nightmarish in its vision of contemporary life and the language that life employs, and wondered how long we can reproduce the discourse of hatred before we're just speaking hatefully. They liked my book. Now I reproduce the discourse of curtains without reclaiming domestic space or anything. This poem wants to rage against a passivity that's probably unavoidable because I believe in futility, the opposite of profit, which is fundamentally loathsome. And I love what is abortive, barren, bootless, elusive, empty, exhausted, forlorn, fruitless, etc. I'm all a swoon over the worthlessness of poetry, of making a briefly unintelligible poem. What are we looking at? My name before I married, my body before I married, my name on an envelope, how we are only known in relation to others. Unintelligible bodies suffer and suffer more when seen. I'm like editing as I read. There is value in curtains, in privacy for guests asleep and giving sleep. I buy curtains and give the gift of restful labor hours for slightly more comfortable waking labor hours, hours on this last day of worthless vacation before the new work year begins, this precious last worthless day, which is also a loathsome day of required rest for required productivity. Lovers making out on a coffee shop couch. I'm growing a human. The poem could have started there, here. I cannot button my coat and know this baby will be commodified and subject to value measurements and the valueless labor that will cost hundreds of imaginary dollars accounted in hospital bills and insurance payments. The valueless labor will be the shortest, most intelligible part of the labor, the part where I have no pants on in a room full of strangers. I'm not prepared to be any more loathsome, which is not nearly loathsome enough to be fully unintelligible. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorraine. Maybe we should make it a rule that people have to be making up their work and editing it while they're reading in this series. Also, you mentioned Kevin Davies.
Yeah.
I wrote to him a couple years, like 2 years ago, and I wanted to tell him how much I was loving reading one of his long poems from comp and showing it to students and things. And he wrote back and he said, I don't read anything of my own after it's published, so I don't actually remember anything that's in that poem. I'm gonna have to go back and reread it to see if I agree with you. Anyway, our next reader is going to be Leslie Bumstead. Leslie's the author of Cipher / Civilian from Edge Books. Her work has appeared in Not for Mothers Only, Boog City, Hotel America, West Wind Review, and elsewhere. She teaches writing at RhizomeDC and in Maryland prisons. Please welcome Leslie Bumstead.
Thank you. Thanks to the Brooklyn Rail folks and Buck for asking us to do this. I'm really happy to be reading with my DC comrades. You guys are like my poetry family. We were talking the other night about how long we've known each other. I won't say, it's too long to say. So I'm going to read two poems. One is kind of long. It's from a longer piece. It's the first section of a prose piece called Them, and then the second one will be shorter. This was inspired by Octavia Butler's book, Dawn, which is the first book in her Lilith's Brood series, and it's amazing. So this is the first section. Swaying in the woozy apocalyptic breeze. The windows trembled when they landed, thousands of them it seemed. They were tiny, with speedy demeanors. We squinted to absorb outlines of anatomies we couldn't apprehend. An undecipherable rain accompanied them, pushing into every available space. How did it get into my sock drawer, my toolbox, my glove compartment, my eardrum? Our electronics stopped working. We stared at our own blank faces. With their quartet eyes, they presented a series of grammars and archipelagos. Was this harmony or dissonance? We couldn't tell. Hadn't we just been walking by, minding our own indifference, when along came these off-worlders in their melodious craft? Or had we already been swaying in the woozy apocalyptic breeze? They asked about our sad, chordate body plans, barely seeing, almost sleeping. What were these horrible sensations, they wanted to know? What design would do this to itself? They saw our attachment to what we loved or found familiar and held it in their illegible hands, marveling at its tenacity. These were muscles and songs and ways of perceiving so deep we could not rearrange them, our bloody hands stuck to the wheel. We found ourselves balanced on the orange lake, watching the bones of the sun lie down along the ridge. We felt ourselves a tiny incipience. They gave us instructions with their shifting outline mouths, and we understood them with a knowledge system we did not recognize. We sat in the dark, considering the new unreal. Perhaps we could be free of them, but they returned with a whole new chapter of scraps. Imagine, they said, your life in baskets by the water hole, unfolding in the seagull dawn, garbage locked, under siege, a fat lot of good it does you, the lockstep instructions, the exploded bridge, mosquito wings, and the flags of advantage. Imagine you can retrieve what has been plundered, recur the sensation of mercy or escape through a trap door, muscle into the crater, pursue the borders of the body, its turnstiles and bouncers, and here you can cut through the scorpion dust and mask up for a future in which your body will appear coherent. They said, your sense of yourselves as pawns in the single imperative of DNA to replicate itself never lasts long enough. You are charming and pitiable creatures, they said, creeping about with your voided script, your irate cargo burning out. Your sense of difference is imagined, and while we're at it, irrelevant, given the obvious blueprint. All variations are nodes or ghosts. They said, You have taken it as your imperative to differentiate and compete, and now you must deactivate and consider your wares, your abuses, your waste. Here we were alerted to embryonic errands occurring in us, something held on from outpost to outpost, vaguely predatory. These were our peopled forests, pinned to the skeleton of an axiom, calling out with exposed larynx. And now they said, you will be calm. You will see yourselves in this context of catastrophe. You actually can't go on, won't continue to breed and spread. Why should you care so much? The sun also will not rise. The seabirds will not call. The tides will not bulge the ocean. The wheat and the morel and the oak will not grow. We grieved, but not because we believed them. We wandered in the imprint of our last labors. This was life? The landscape was swampy, glowing. We felt ourselves bony intruders, skeletons click-clacking against the gloam. Here we managed small pursuits, a snack, a dry place to sit down, an armored shadow. Don't forget, they said, that you contacted us with your soft hands and your practical categories. You said, make us specimens so we may see ourselves and settle our disputes with a final assessment of what we've done. You are always struggling against your leaky dispositions in your courts, in your hospitals, in your gardens, in your grocery stores, in your games, in your sleep. We said, that may be true, but it doesn't account for grief. Grief, they said. The purple lines of the oily ocean, the yellow spots on those sea creatures, the dinnertime conversation during a death watch. What? We said. You do not know grief, they said, until everything is gone, and you are hoisted into a tunnel above the atmosphere and groped by energies you can't see and turned before a squadron of lenses and left finally alone without a frame, and what remains is only grief, as even sleep has been erased from your function. Is that what happened to you? We said. No, they said. That is what will happen to you. And then my second poem is quite a bit shorter. It's called You Think You Are Real. You think you are real, but you are not. You think you have a name and a home and a helmet and a trunk, but you do not. You think you will have winter alone, and that the river is your only throat, and that bees have brought their answers to the absent hearts and fields, but you will not, and it is not, and they have not. The orphaned intuitions tunneled through your scorched bones. Those were not your bones. You were tuned inside an insect sound, and the sound waves blurred your forehead, and your eyes wandered and wept. What were those tears? A common grief describing the chamber, and you were found there, then and again, unreal among the restless mosses. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, we're going to hear from Rod Smith. Rod's books include Touché, published by Wave Books, Deed from the University of Iowa, Music or Honesty, published by Roof, and The Good House, published by Spectacular Books, among others. He edits the journal Ariel. He edits the journal Ariel. Maybe he secretly edits another journal called Area. And he's the publisher of Edge Books, and you've heard a lot of the titles published by folks reading today are come through Edge Books as well. And he manages Bridge Street Books, a terrific bookstore in Washington, D.C., and you can get a lot of Edge Books there, actually. I recommend the whole catalog. Please welcome Rod Smith.
Thanks, Anselm. It's good to be here. I'm always nervous reading in New York, but you know, that's how it goes. Untitled piece. The sway and descent matters lackadaisical warming lamp, a ready or sought damp taught to the oogly sage in Valentine's Day on the sway. Jam-like, bulb-like, bum-like, or fuss-like, and highly sensitive, this waltzing apparent, or this love which is a universe like you, like the maze, a maze taught to the well-meant world, which is a wick. Undeny lights flowering, its need-like topple and basic innate gathering. Still blossom of othered flame, still cost, still wilt, still swaying the autumnal and sped the swaying for the waste and unrepose, a hover and thought net flower bed of song humbling the ravished peril, the love muffins and seagulls rousing the spectacles calm repent upwards into the funnel where mordant swabs houseplant the detailed waif, churlish and great. And for whatever reason, I decided I wanted to read a bit of a long poem called The Good House today. The Good House. The good houses the parts, calls to them and wakens. In being, the house we will, its precepts lumber the stilling male. Opulence isn't allowed, so to form is to erase what's not gradual and new. A specific love to focus the elements. When we lock the door, things float around a while, climax and rest in the new sense. The good part of the house is where something leaves alone the light that it lattice the red, souring horse needs, made by no other. Safety depends in them, so knowing strength, so knowing weakness. This is where we will and home. The good house feels bad about the territory. The house seems to be a verb, though it dislikes the term housing. The house seems to be a bad dog and a live wire. The house is bored until people come over. The house is anxious to please guests. It is stupid and so thinks cordon means love. It is wise and so chooses. The honesty of the house helps the people to know. They can relax and recall other houses they have known. They become simple and listen to each other and to some birds, the birds right now. The good wasn't built into the house, but earned. Once a beggar lived there, and once a small one. The police came and went. There were parties. The good wasn't upkeep, it was a perilous upkeep. There was kindling. This house was that house to many, and to many there was no house there because they hadn't noticed. There was one who noticed and was wanted, was loved. This gave the house hope. This gave the house no hope. This gave the house hope. It alternated, sometimes house, sometimes home. And sometimes the kitty licks the bicycle on the porch. There's a barrel in the basement that belongs to a country singer named Nell. There's an old Wonder Bread wrapper behind the kitchen cabinet nobody knows the story on. There's a stack of bad news in a box by the back door. There's a wreath in a box behind the thing and a bauble on the window box above some stuff. Tears never house us. Maybe they cleanse, maybe they don't. The word intend doesn't seem to fit. Sentiment. Anything can be made out of a house, though many of them are blue. There's a kind of recovery in it then, too much innocence or minutes left out, those, a time or economic worry, a weird abreaction. Seeps in the house are loans one cannot trust, a trusted house, the work of the house, a dirigible. Time is a housed, reputable beginner. 30 more are needed. Tripping, the house needs the flower, spells me, parts the bowl, stuns, and is soft, stuns, and is real. The good house is given advice. In times of danger, ceremonious forms are dropped. What matters most is sincerity. There are 8 houses in the heart. There should be 9. That it is a house, that it never moves, that it loses concentration, that it questions and foregoes, does not feel good, does not hail, half of it for love, harboring and voracious saplings of prayer, praying to sapling, lots of lazy, happy, lenient, bested cognizance, the felled soft letters of coming. Ordinary houses complete the smart bombs and are buoyant, victorious brain waves of shunt commotion, bestial then or not house, the load, the makeup assignment reads long into the long night, dreams of lassos, garbage, things it thinks it cannot change. House and holographic pastoral battenings brace the heart's chosen will, which being one thing becomes modest, plies the decent roads with nests and rope, lone and casual, available breezeway of one seeming. This house, it is safe and loving, protected from what is false, unfailing. Then no whence can raise or pillar night thence town. House await and house be grown, house of heart. House of house, heart of house, a lake beside it is sown. Any sung house requires calligraphy, camp, and curtains. All too cute, yes, yet one tires of burnt toys, dry fetishes, dead humor, and clocks. To hold that which one loves in the right way, with trust and lust, without a certain kind of winter. To love the one loves and be loved in a good house for a long time. Leave the leaves, let them work. This will would rather underrate that when it's like that, Thanatos, turpentine, or teacher's bepetment, a spell toked in the coat room, sunning. The house in Crimea, is it good? We don't know, but it goes on. It is important, several, unreasonable. House spite comes when there's no plants, coughs and dragons. The said empire is tight. Woe to causation, woe to the swart angles. In a quiet house, in a house which is very quiet, where the brackish tandem brooks the loons, it is cold, it is cruel, somewhat erotic, wavy like a top what was a spool. The inner standing is 10 to the nth power. We think we house, actually we are housed, and the equal quiet shakes in us. So that's just part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Our final reader today is going to be Heather Fuller, who's managed to somehow evade jury duty to be here, as far as I understand. Nurse and animal advocate Heather Fuller is the author of 4 poetry collections, including Dick Cheney's Heart from Edge, and occasional plays, essays, stories, beer recipes, dress patterns, and garden designs. She is part of a Baltimore hospital team that won a Daisy Award for extraordinary nursing for work during the COVID pandemic. Please welcome Heather Fuller.
One second, brother. Sorry, a tech problem.
Coming through now? All right, thank you. Thanks, Anselm. And it is true. Some days I'm a nurse, some days I'm a jurist. You know, you just never know. But it's not many days I get to spend time with friends, and I'm so grateful for that today. Forgive me if I am a little hyped up on the law. I am going to read from an ongoing project called Baltimore Notebooks. Lie down with dogs. Who knew? Coveralls came in skinny. Charred and busted out mass transit blocks the street to commerce, but dogs keep filing through. Hope draws the medic to the ash can. Doubt fixes her. Josie G says that's how people do. Who hoards lidocaine? 2x2s, parks a pickup in broad view. Last week I tracked patient 0 all the way to Myrtle Bog, imagined in Aberdeen aerostat amour. Can it see me naked beneath the covers? This week, my handiwork is for shit. All this infirmity here and in the trauma room, it's plain indulgent. I'm not cool enough to talk torque in front of Red Emma's or lurid enough for the hipster butcher. By speaking aloud, my bicycle has the right of way. The magic of the universe surrounds me. The bars closed early. I can't make myself go home. Foxtrot. Common purpose, a perpetual boot in the ass. And should I fall in the storm drain, fish me out with your slip through penny. Kits rustle in Chuck bar food bins or whatever the locals call repurposing, when all along you thought you'd lost the mayor in a dive off Baker's Way, where no longer bakers bake, but there in the fire lane, a standoff, wilderness versus savagery. Dog case. Service industry empties bodies from buses, rat rods peel out from the boneyard, peacekeepers divide odds with a loved rat in summer. Officer Dogood is on patrol again for remedial offenses, ditched his bike in jailbait Frankie's carport when the dog catcher threw in the towel on Cody Bear, loose in a wilderness of childlike false alarms. The pit bull toted the traffic cone from Saratoga down to Preston, finally surrendering it on Greenmont. All any dog ever wanted was a job. Intoxicated pedestrian. Every time I try to go home, an unseen hand snatches me back into the center late again. If this is muscle memory, if this is reward for wandering, cracked 12th rib, box of broken cookies, officer, it's an adrenaline hangover, graveyard shift and all that. For 167th, we worked over a widowmaker, punched a chest into another lifetime. It was bloody and bad and took an energy drink or two and nothing what some good book told us. Notify a coroner. 16-hour shift, broke the body down to off hours of possible mouthing off, probable drunkenness. Grandma Haji said more than once, work, ease, and worry, but never reckoned how to fathom the hologram of a dead child. Drag racing. Months since the derecho cracked the cab in two, after the crosswalk jackknife arsons across Kenwood, bullet through a school bus, drag star disappearance. We thought, oh, rolling thunder. But the mayor now decrees we are Grand Prix City. Riot. We no longer say Dresden after the bombs or Fallujah 2004. We say Baltimore. We say we work and sleep here, make friends at bars here. We work and sleep some more and make fewer friends at more bars, then work and sleep and have no friends, but many bars. Stairwell Revenant. The ear on the sidewalk outside the emergency room was unequivocally human. Its helix curved elegantly into a pert lobe, bearing the dimple of a retracted piercing. The triangular fossa still framed the shadows of the ear's superior contours. Even the tragus remained intact, implying a deep and angled cut, likely executed from the back of the head. Did the ear's former owner feel it coming? Corinne wondered as she stood above the severed cartilage. Even more pressing, was there someone inside the ER searching for an ear? It's not that it mattered. Corinne, a nurse in the hospital attached to the ER, recognized the signs of tissue death. The ash-dusted fountain pen indigo tinting rain-pelted candle wax. Not even the rock star plastics team could reunite this ear with its rightful head. Corinne stalled on the sidewalk. She had 5 minutes to report to work on the top floor of the inpatient tower adjacent to the ER. Should she leave the ear on the sidewalk? Should she report it to the ER, as if that sight of so much misery was some macabre lost and found? In the face of this decision, Corinne choked. She kicked the ear with the bottom of her clog into the rock garden beside the ER's turnstile doors. Corinne reached the time clock with 8 seconds to spare. She regretted cutting it so close. It afforded her no time before her shift to visit the tower stairwell, which she looked forward to visit as frequently as her shift on the locked bioisolation unit would allow. She began visiting the stairwell several months ago. During the same week, the management abruptly announced the conversion of her ward to the Unified Center for Emerging Infectious Disease. On break, she peeled off her impermeable gown, gloves, shield, and pressurized helmet, scrubbed in the sink with a 20-second timer overhead, then ran laps up and down the 9 flights of stairs in the tower stairwell. Several weeks into bioisolation, one of Corinne's patients died from an infectious pathogen no one quite understood. She took her break in the stairwell just as she had on prior nights. But on this particular night, as she sprinted from the landing on the 8th floor to the 7th-story stairs, a voice stopped her mid-step. "Help me." Corinne froze and listened. 3 minutes passed on her nurse's field watch. The voice did not repeat its entreaty. Corinne turned and walked back to the 9th floor. On the way, she found no one in need of help. The following night, Corinne resumed her stairwell run. "Help me," again, halted her between the 8th and 7th floors. Corinne assessed that a trained and perceptive nurse might detect a hint of breathlessness, a trace of air hunger, a plaintiveness that demanded a split-second choice. Is this an urgency or emergency? Her forays into the stairwell continued in this manner the next night and the night after that. 3 months of bioisolation passed, and it dawned on Corinne that the voice in the stairwell might want what all of her patients wanted, a bit of comfort. She took her falafel and nectarine into the stairwell and sat on the 8th floor landing. She propped her smartphone against the step and tapped play. Dark Valley by the Holidays flooded the stairwell. As the music pressed on, Corinne heard no help me's interspersed among the phrases. Instead, she thought she felt the landing beneath her shake slightly and a chill cloak her in the stairwell's close air. Every night after that, she repeated the Dark Valley concert and felt the shaking and the chill deep inside her core. On that night, Corinne found the ear outside the ER. She followed the same routine. She took her food to the stairwell, then sat down to play Dark Valley. This night, however, no help me implored her. The shaking and chill ceased as well. The following morning, Corinne clocked out and slipped a plastic biohazard bag into her backpack. She bypassed the stairwell, took the elevator to the ground floor, then detoured to the ER. The ear was still lying in the rock garden where she had kicked it. She kneeled down and looked around to make sure no one was watching. She used a rock to flip the ear into the biohazard bag, sealed the bag carefully, then folded it over into a neat package. She tucked it into her jacket pocket and started walking home. Thank you all.
Wow, thank you, Heather. And thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Buck, for putting this together, and Rod, Lorraine, and Leslie, and it's great to hear you all. So let's do the thing where we all get unmuted and say hello, and then we say goodbye.
All right. Damn.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody, for
Thanks,
coming.
everybody.
Super.
Thanks, everyone.
So good to see people's faces.
Thank you.
Thank you for existing.
Bye.